Hello, and welcome to Toastmasters in the Community. I'm your host, Fran Okeson, and with me today is Fern Rashkova. Hi, Fern. How are you doing today?
How are you? Good to see you.
We missed you last month when you couldn't get through the torrential rains.
That's right. I wasn't taking a rowboat to Staten Island, sorry.
Not from Douglas and Queens, you weren't. Peter and I got here. We were leaving the house, and I said, oh, let me grab my raincoat. It's supposed to rain. He said, it's not raining. Sun's out. So I believed him, and I came out, got in the car. Halfway here, the skies opened up. We got here at the CTV studio, and we sat in the car for about 30 minutes until I saw the people going in. Figured since I had everybody's speech material, I'd better get in too.
Right.
And so today I said to Peter, you know, I was going to tell you, make sure you take the raincoat. He said, why? The sun's out. I said, just to poke fun at you from last month. But anyway, I'm doing something a little bit different, Fern. At the beginning of I know you're going to be speaking after I give my opening. This is not the time. This is just, I'm putting out a feeler to people in our Staten Island community. If your organization is planning anything where you'd like the community of Staten Island to come and see it, Snug Harbor has events, all sorts of places. The Lighthouse Museum, as you see, I'm an aficionado of lighthouses. I love them. My theme as district governor was Share the Light, and my house is full of lighthouses. Just email me. My email and my phone number is at the end of the script today, and just tell me what your organization is doing, and I'll see if it's something that we on CTV are allowed to put out to the public, and maybe you'll see some new people from Staten Island. The Tibetan Art Museum is fantastic. The whole of Snug Harbor, the Botanical Gardens, beautiful things on Staten Island. And watch the CTV channel 34 on Verizon and Fios, because I watch it. If I get up during the night, I go in, I turn on 34. This show, I've seen it now the last show, I've seen about 4 times. And I just sit there and watch and see what I can correct for the next show. But they're on at funny hours. The only known time of ours is 7 o'clock every Saturday. And the first 2 weeks after we tape is the first show, and then our afternoon show comes the next 2 weekends, and then we're back here again. So let's get started. This show is our anniversary, I'm not going to say meeting, but since I was the District 46 governor during the 9/11 catastrophe, I've tried to keep people aware of what everybody went through on that fateful day. So I'm on the clock now, Lucy, if you don't mind. My speech will start. And what did I say I was doing? It was speech number 6, vocal variety, and I called my, Tony is supposed to be evaluating me. Where is Tony Figueroa?
He's evaluating you.
What?
He's here doing it.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Tony. Thank you. All right, so my title is 9/11, The Pain Never Goes Away. I've had so many people sitting up here talking to me, I forget who's supposed to be up here. But I'm glad you're here now. Easier to talk to you this way than on the phone.
Yes. In person's always good.
I know. All right. So we go along with 9/11. And what happened was just a normal day. Normal day, and I guess it was my daughter who called and told me what happened. And the first thing I did, being a former Girl Scout leader for many, many years, I went around the house and I started to get packing. And it wasn't funny. As the day went on, well, other things I've talked about other years, but I found this in my bookcase. I have 9 bookcases and 5 desks. But I found this a few months ago, or a few weeks ago, and it's the first Paul Scharf became our first District 83 governor in 2008, and he had his conference booklet. And I figured, oh, you know, it looks like it's never been read, although it has been. I take very good care of my things. But here I saw that in his first book, they had interviews of the past District 46 governors. And I figured, I guess I was interviewed because there's my ugly picture, and there's a blurb. So I figured, I read this, and I figured, well, let me talk about that, because I've never talked about this, because I forgot I had this book. So my excerpt about my time as the District 46 governor from 2001, 2002, I took office on July 1st and 9/11, so I didn't even get my feet wet in the job. So this is I'm bringing my house glasses, so maybe I can read this better than the other things I've been. All right, so it says, when I announced my theme, Share the Light, lighthouses started appearing everywhere on flyers, posters, and programs. Members were sharing their light around the district, and that made me feel very secure. It's nice when you come up with a theme that's important to you and people take it to their own heart. If you have a theme and they don't understand what it is, they're not going to take it to their heart. And then you wonder why people aren't using your theme, and that's what happens. So going on. Then the unthinkable happened, and the horror of September 11th overcame the light as the Twin Towers came down. Our light was dimmed, but not snuffed out. The healing began, slowly at first, but the light continued to shine, and it was shared by all who wanted and needed it. And that was the blurb I gave them as my memory of my tenure as the District 46 governor, and now we are directors. I wanted to expound a little bit. Every year around this time, I think about that day. I think about my district, I guess, not a newsman, but whatever he was on charge of everything, and he was getting personal calls. It might have been Ben Patania, I'm not too sure, I should have looked that up. But he was in contact with me. And there was a man, an Asian man, I believe, who got out of the towers, and there was a store around on, it was West Street up in Manhattan, and he put all his muffins and everything, rolls and everything out on the sidewalk. A lot of the stores were, because people were running away from the towers, they were going uptown, and people were putting the food in their pockets, and this man put something in his pockets and he ran, not knowing that he ran up to Gramercy Park. I've never been there, but maybe you have. Quite a run. But his neighbors came in and were consoling his wife because he didn't call home and they thought he was gone. And he got home very late that night. Very poignant story. And I think it was Ben Patania, and he sent, the man wrote to him or emailed him, and he sent me a copy. And it was poignant, and he said, well, let me fix it up a little bit, because he was so charged when he got home at the typewriter that he didn't separate his words or anything. It was all jumbled together. I said, no, that was the feeling he had. The jumbled feeling of him running up to Gramercy Park and then making his way to New Jersey, where he lived. Other thoughts came. The first thing I did as the district governor, I called our Toastmasters headquarters in California. Now they're in Colorado. But the lines were dead. And I figured, what happened? And then I realized. So I finally got word, a day or so later, when they opened up again, that one of their own workers, Melanie Frost, had a daughter, I believe her name was Lisa, and she had just graduated from college in the East and was on the second plane and was on her way home to get her job, and she never made the trip. And that rocked everybody's boat, because that was someone whose mother was a kingpin at Toastmasters International. There are memories, we all have memories, and I don't want to go over memories. We do this show every September, and if anyone in our audience has an unusual story of something that happened to them or someone they know and can verify it, if you get in touch with me, we'll see if you'd like to come on the show next year, on our September show, and give that as one of the memories. I think it's one of those situations in life, our lifetime, that we have to keep remembering so we never have to go through this again, God willing. And we'll see what happens. And that's the end. So there are many, many, many stories out there. And I think we have to keep them to our hearts. So moving on to the show. Fern, you are the next one. I am so impressed. You talked to me after you got home from one of your You know, you were a teacher for how many years?
29.
So you couldn't make it to 30, could you?
Well, I've been subbing, so it's really 38 now.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, you're always away. It's very nice that you did a lot of teaching all those years, and I've known you for so many years. But this last trip meant something special to you. So let me give the information. You said that you could use about 15 minutes. So I said to you, why don't you do a number 10 speech where you have 8 to 10 minutes and you'll be covered under the 15. It's Inspire Your Audience from the basic manual. And 15 minutes on the clock, and Fern told you what time period she wanted. Kevin Thompson is your evaluator, and your title is Going to Gander. Going to Gander. Let's all welcome Fern Rashkova.
Fellow Toastmasters and viewing audience, hope I can do this without getting emotional. On 9/11, the morning of 9/11, there were 4,500 planes in the air. Jumbo jets, little planes, medium planes. Out of those, in addition to those 4,500 flying over the United States, there were 400 international flights coming in to North America from the east and from the west. 250 of those planes landed in Canada. At 9:45 a.m., the United States closed the airspace after the second tower fell, and they realized there was something very bad going on. Canada unconditionally allowed us to use their airspace. 250 planes landed in Canada. Out of those 250, 38 planes carrying 6,600 passengers and 500 flight crew landed in a small town of Gander, which is on the east coast of the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. A year after 9/11, a book was written, The Day the World Came to Our Town. This is the backstory of what happened in Gander. In New York, we were so obsessed with what was going on with us, we had no idea what was going on in the rest of the world. So for some of you know what happened in Gander and how they helped us. Some of you don't know. I'm going to share that with you now. 6,600 people landed in Gander. Gander has a population of 10,000. The head honchos, the key players in Gander, the leaders, took all their resources, closed the high schools, made them into shelters, found churches and other community groups, turned them into shelters. And one by one, they were going to empty these planes of what they call the plane people and get them into these shelters and take care of them for however long it would be. When the Canadian airspace was first closed, everybody thought that the United States would be opening up the airspace in a couple of hours, but by evening, people realized that wasn't going to be happening. So it turned out that these 6,600 people were in Gander for 126 hours, from the first plane being unloaded Tuesday afternoon to the last plane being unloaded probably Wednesday night, and by Sunday, all the planes were on their way when American airspace reopened. The people of Gander were amazing. I want you to remember a name, Oz Fudge. Oz Fudge. Fudge, yes, like the chocolate. He was the constable, town constable at the time, and he was a Royal Canadian policeman previously to his job in Gander. He was one of the key players. People started emptying out the people of Gander without expecting anything in return, just went on automatic pilot. And this is the stuff that we didn't think about. They emptied out their houses with pillowcases and sheets and towels. People started cooking en masse for all these plane people because they had to be fed. They were taken to places. Oh, when they got off the plane, they didn't get their luggage. The last plane that was unloaded, the people ended up being on the plane for 30 hours because they had to do one plane at a time. They had to vet them, take them through security, make sure they were on not any controversial no-fly lists, etc. Everybody went through tons and tons of security. What was interesting, there was a school bus strike going on, 9/11. And the minute the people landed in Gander, the school bus strikers stopped striking so that they could transport everybody to the shelters once the planes were assigned. And I will tell you that when everybody left by Sunday the following week, the school bus strikers went back on strike, and hopefully they got what they wanted. So now the people of Gander are taking care. This was amazing. Fran, you're in a shelter. They don't have showers. So a person came up to you and said, Fran, why don't you come to my house? You can take a shower. I got to go to work, so take a shower, take a nap, go raid the fridge, watch a little TV, do whatever you have to do. And when you leave, just close my door because we don't lock our doors in Gander. And this is what everybody did in Gander and the suburbs to help people. One man said that he was at a lady's house and she said, after you take a shower, why don't you drive me to work? Why should my car be just sitting there? You can drive around Gander and go sightseeing. And he said to her, but ma'am, I'm a stranger. How can you give me your car? And the lady said, well, we live on an island. Where are you going? Okay? We don't even want to think forget about what would happen in New York. They'd get off the island. Anyway, How many times have you been told not to put your meds in your suitcase? You know how many people put their meds in their suitcases and they didn't have access to their suitcases? Listen to what the pharmacists, again, this is stuff that we didn't think about. The pharmacists got the prescriptions from all the people, and they spent 24 to 48 hours calling all over the world to get the prescriptions. And then the pharmacists in Gander started filling the prescriptions. They ran out of pills, so they would go into the outlying areas and they ran out of pills, and then they called to the closest cities and brought the pills in if you had insulin or blood pressure, you know, any chronic medicine that you needed. So everybody, just remember, don't ever put your drugs in your suitcase. This is what went on for days and days. So I get to my hotel, because my goal to go to Gander in Newfoundland, I went on vacation. I wanted to walk around Gander and thank everybody what they did for 9/11. And I kept telling my friends, hopefully I'm not going to end up in jail for accosting people on the street. So I get to the hotel in Gander. My bus driver is the one that told me about this book, The Day the World Came to Our Town. I was talking to the ladies at the desk, and they were working on 9/11. We were talking about it. And then they said, you know what, Fern, at 7 o'clock, there's a 9/11 tour, young college kids giving a 9/11 tour. Why don't you go on it? I said, absolutely. Nobody else from my tour group went because it was dinner time. Who cared about dinner? So I paid my $39. It was supposed to be an hour and a half tour. 2.5 hours later, she brings me back to the hotel. Young lady named Abby. So we drive to the airport. Now I figured, 20-minute ride, like we're going from my house to LaGuardia in Queens. Literally in 2 minutes, I'm seeing a plane. So what's that plane in the street? She says, oh, Fern, we're at the airport already.
Oh,
So I got the history of the Gander Airport. That will be another speech. Then she drives me around Gander. I saw where the high schools were. I'm also in the Little Neck Douglaston Lions Club, so I saw the Gander Lions Club. They have their own building. This Sunday night at 8 o'clock. Then Abby takes me to Town Hall. She says, we have a little memorabilia room that I'd like you to see. And she said, by the way, I have a surprise for you. I said, you have a surprise for me? Oh, I like surprises. Somebody wants to meet you. I said, it's Sunday night at 8 p.m. Who could possibly want to meet me? We walk into the room. Remember I mentioned Oz Fudge? There's Oz Fudge. Mm-hmm. She called him up and said, come meet Fern from New York. I didn't know what to do. I was so shocked that I curtsied. In Canada, you curtsy for the Queen. So I curtsied for him as far as I was concerned with what he did and how he mobilized everything. By the way, if you've seen the show Come From Away, it's on Broadway. If you haven't seen it, you must see it. It is about what happened in Gander on 9/11. And of course, he is one of the characters. And he told me, we spoke for about 45 minutes, and he told me that he was there for the premiere, October 2016. Said, hope you had a good seat. Said, yes, he had a very good seat. So we're chatting. I told him I'm a retired New York City school teacher, and that when I got home, I still substitute teach in my school. When I got home, I would be reading this book to the 4th and the 5th graders in the school, maybe even the 3rd graders. And I would be telling them about meeting him and meeting Abby and everything that happened in Gander in 9/11 and what everybody did for people. And he said to me, Fern, I'm coming to New York September 15th to the 24th. How about I come and visit your school? I almost fainted. Now, you all know I have a big mouth. I'll ask you to do anything, but in a million years, I would never have ever didn't even enter my mind to ask this man this. Well, unfortunately, now his trip has fallen through, and I'm hoping that the next time he comes to New York, we can make a little rendezvous. I already had it set up. I wanted to do a Toastmaster thing, have him be a keynote. I was planning his whole week for him. Anyway, what Gander did was amazing. People, for 126 hours, went out of their way to help the people. Now listen to this story. There are so many backstories about people in this book. Obviously, I can't go through the whole thing, but one of the suburbs, a town called Lewisport, was one of the shelters as well. And I guess during the few days that they were there, people were very appreciative as to what the townspeople were doing for them. So this man and this woman go to speak to the principal of the middle school, which is one of the shelters. They had gotten a little tour of the school, and they saw that the computers were outdated. So they go to the principal, and they said, we really appreciate what you did, and we'd like to replace all the computers in the school for your kids.
Wow.
The principal said, no, 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 we don't do anything. We didn't ask, we don't need to be reimbursed. We don't need to be thanked. We don't need you to give us anything. No, 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 we insist. We are in a position to do this. We want you to walk around the school, take inventory, and look and get back to us. And they hand the principal their calling card. It was the president and the CEO of the Rockefeller Foundation,
Wow.
who had been stranded, like many other people. Well, the principal never got back to them. And 6 weeks later, the Rockefeller people contacted them and said, you're going to get the computers no matter what, so tell us what you need. And they ended up giving them a grant for $52,000 to cover all the computers in the school. This was humanity helping humanity. Also in Lewisport, when all the plane people got back on the plane, somebody asked to speak to the passengers, and the steward had said, okay. And they said, the person speaking said, we really appreciate what these kids did for us, the high school kids, the townspeople. Why don't we start a scholarship fund for the high school kids in Lewisport? And tens of thousands of dollars were pledged, tens of thousands of dollars were collected, and to this day, 17 years later, scholarships are still being given out and donations are still being made to the schools in Gander and the surrounding towns. This is a story of humanity helping humanity with not expecting anything in return, but what these people did for all these Americans, Europeans, people from all over the world was amazing. And although we had a horrible situation that caused this to happen, I ask you to hold in your hearts the people of Gander and the surrounding towns in Newfoundland and thank them in your heart for what they did for the people of 9/11.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Would you ever go back?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I'm not done with us, Fudge.
Well, you tell him when to come on the first Saturday of any month, and we'll put you both on the show.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, wouldn't that be amazing?
That would be fantastic. Well, tell him he's invited. I have my district governor letterhead. I'll give you a sheet, or I'll write.
Well, we'll see when he comes back.
Okay.
But anyway, The Day the World Came to Our Town, it was written in 2002 by a man named Jim DeFede, D-E-F-E-D-E. He's an American, and he felt that this story needed to be told.
Yeah.
So, there you go.
Now, is this
Going
in the
to
libraries? Can people get it in libraries?
I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Well, thank you very much, Fern, and you did that very well. I mean, when you first told me the story and how you went to the one house and a lady came out, and once she heard you were from New York, right away the arms went out. And
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, then I didn't put that in the speech. I did walk
the lights
around
didn't come
Gander.
on, so, until the green light comes on, you can keep talking.
No, I did walk around Gander, and I did knock on people's doors. I went into the dollar store and spoke to people.
They have a dollar store there, too?
Yes, and I had them sign my book, as a memory page.
Aw.
So it was an unbelievable, unbelievable experience. By the way, it's Newfoundland, not Newfoundland, not Newfoundland, Newfoundland. If you forget, understand Newfoundland. There we go.
Very, very, thank you. Since you retired, you have really traveled,
Yes.
I still tell
I'm
people,
lucky.
one thing about you is you always carry Staten Island's proxies to the International Convention to vote for
Yes, I do.
our next officials. I don't know why you keep asking me every year, are you going to let me carry your proxies? I said, of course. Then I call the other presidents and say to you, go ahead and let her do it. I'm not going. Go ahead and
Good.
let her do it.
Good.
And I
Next
like
year
it
is
be-
Denver.
Yeah, I know. But the reason I like you is that you don't stop until you interview
yes.
each of the people that are
Tony
there.
he can attest to that. He saw
Well,
me
he-
walking around.
Well, everybody sees you walking around. No, but you go to the heart. You want to know who's running, why they're running, and what they're going to do for the average Toastmaster.
Right.
And then you do your voting.
Right.
So, and that's what I like. And that's what I used to do, too. That's why Christine Timlecki, who didn't make the international president, I told you to vote for her because in her year, when she was running for a lesser office, she was giving out these shell necklaces, and she gave me one, and I fell in love with her for a minute. Where is she from?
Philippines.
Philippines. Oh, the Philippines are fantastic people. But I
Yes,
said
they
to
are.
Tony, you are going for Christine, and I said, make sure you tell her I still have that hanging on the light in my office, that necklace that she gave, the little shell necklace. Maybe she'll run next time.
I don't know.
Well, you'll be there, so God willing, I'll be here, and I'll sign off our votes to you again. So let's move on then. Our director is out here. Have you been standing there long, Isaac?
About 4 minutes and 35 seconds.
Oh, then you're almost done. You get 30 seconds for your speech. All right, it's going to be a quick one. All right, Isaac Ovinovich. I have to tell this story. Most people that watch the show don't see him because he says, I don't want to make a speech. I say, well, will you do a table? Yeah, we'll see. Will you do an evaluation? Yeah, we'll see. But when I met him, and he said his name was Isaac Ovinovich, he came to a Smedley's meeting, and then we were asked by, I guess, Tony or somebody, could we go and salvage a club in New Jersey that was having a lot of troubles? So I said to him, I'll drive to your house, but you drive to Jersey. And we did. And somebody at one of the meetings said, what's your last name? And he goes, Gavinovich. And I looked at him and I said, Gavinovich, you introduced yourself to us as Gavinovich. He said, what's the difference? I mean, my maiden name was Hoey, and I can't tell you how many people call me Hooey. That made a difference. There's a big difference between Gavinovich and Gavinovich. I bet you have fun with Rashkova, don't you? Names are funny. See, little girls have to worry about who they're going to marry to see if they like the last name. That's my information to all the little girls who are watching this show.
Okay, I could be Fern Glubinovich.
You weren't asked. You weren't asked. Look at the look on his face. He's turning scarlet over there. Oh, good
I
Lord.
like him.
Everybody likes him. All right.
not
Isaac
everybody.
Gobinovich, distinguished Toastmaster. We started the Brooklyn's Best Club over in New Jersey. Remember?
You started it. I didn't. I just visited.
I was giving
It
you
was
credit.
before my time.
Well, I charted 40 clubs with other people, so let's go.
Speech title?
His speech title is, well, he changed it. And your evaluator, Rachel's going to be your evaluator. All right. He gave me, I remember, ... But anyway, Isaac's speech is, where were you on 9/11? With a question mark. Let's all welcome Isaac Gobinovich.
Madam Producer, fellow Toastmasters, and of course viewing audience. Now I have 5 seconds to finish my speech. Actually, it's a very interesting subject. And I saw a number of shows, and they said everybody remembers where they were on 9/11. Where were you on 9/11? I remember where I was, like it was yesterday, although 17 years passed. I was en route to work. I used to live in New Jersey and work in New Jersey, and I was going north on Route 4 when I heard, oh, some kind of a small plane is going into the towers. It's like a commuter's plane. No, it's a personal plane. No, it's a jumbo jet. And then it went silent. It was, oh my God. I got to work, took me, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, and I started calling my wife, because my wife used to work on Water Street. It's not too far from the World Trade Center. It's a walk, it's quite a hike, but not too far. And she used the train under World Trade Center to get from New Jersey to Manhattan and then walk to work. I had no idea where she was at the time, because it was early in the morning. I started calling, but phones were down. There was no way to reach her. Nobody could reach anybody. Our daughter was in school. She was trying to reach us. It was mess. Finally, I reached my wife, and she was telling me that I'm looking out of my window. She was on 23rd floor. She said, I'm looking out of my window. Oh my God, I cannot look at it. I cannot see it. The towers are coming down. The towers are coming down. And she just hung up. Well, at least I knew she was alive and she was in her office. Next to me was my colleague, in a cubicle next to me. And I saw him sitting like this, with his eyes closed, just praying. When I stopped by and I asked, what happened, what's going on? He said, not now, not now. He was sitting there for about half an hour, just like that. Then I found out that his brother, his older brother, was supposed to be on 96th floor of the tower having a meeting. He had no idea where his brother is. About 5 o'clock in the evening, his brother finally called him. He was late to work. His children were acting up, and he missed the bus to get to work. He missed it by a few minutes. If he didn't, he probably wouldn't be calling. Where were you on 9/11? Everybody remembers it. I know, because I do. After, a few days after, people ask me, or actually years after, people ask me, have you gone to World Trade Center? I didn't. To this day, I didn't go to the ground. I just can't. See, we've been to World Trade Center many, many times with my family, walking around, having good time. It's not the same now. They're rebuilding it, but it's not the same. It's different. And we're different because of it. Fern was talking about halfway across the street, half-world across the street, people were helping us. People helping each other here in New York. Just strangers, complete strangers were helping each other. On 9/11, the same night, around 8 o'clock at night, we got a call from my in-laws. They got stuck at the bridge going to Staten Island because they live in Staten Island. They couldn't get there because all the bridges were closed. They're locked down. The whole city was locked down. It took my wife about 6 hours to walk to a ferry to get home because transportation wasn't working. Everybody was walking. She walked from downtown to Midtown to get on a ferry to get home. She finally did that. But then our in-laws, they couldn't get home, so they came to us. And we just opened a whole table, we fed them, we gave them a place to sleep, and next day they went back to, the next day when the island was open, they went home. So it's not, and yeah, we're family, we do help each other. Families do help each other, that's what the family is all about. But like I said, complete strangers, just on the streets, feeding people, giving them water, directing people, because everybody was disheveled, everybody was disoriented. Where were you on 9/11? Do you remember? Madam Producer.
Thank you very, very much, Isaac. Okay, and then moving right along. Okay. Rachel, what are you doing up now? I have
She's a
Paul
speaker.
speaking next. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Rachel.
Rachel and then Paul. Okay, I was talking to you then. I'm sorry, Rachel. I see you there now. Okay. Oh, yes, you're one of them doing pathways. I'm getting a kick out of when these people who are into pathways send me their information. And level 1, this, that, and the other thing. Tony Figueroa told me he's just finishing up level 1, I guess it is. I swear I will get into it as soon as I can.
This is my last speech for level 1.
And I know you're going to explain to me when I get into the system exactly what it is, right?
Yes,
I just
absolutely.
have a little bit more to do to finish what I'm working on, and then I will press that button that says Base Camp, and I will find myself. I understand from people who are into it that it's very much like our regular Toastmasters. It's just called something different. Because when you said research your topic, I figured, well, that's the number 7 speech. Then I saw level 1, I figured, oh, she's into pathways. All right, so you're doing a pathways level 1. The topic is research your topic. You have 6 minutes, and Margarita Estrada is filling in for your evaluator who didn't. That's why I got all messed up. A couple of people didn't show up today. And your title is Clear the Air. Okay, I got
Correct.
that part right. So let's all welcome Rachel Weiss.
Thank you, Fran. Thank you, Fern. Isaac, where was I? I was on the third floor of the building that I work in for the last 25 years. And from my vantage point, I could see the towers. And when the first plane hit, it was like something went wrong. When the second plane hit, I felt all the blood rush out and said, we're under attack, this is war. September 11th changed everything. At 9:25 a.m., the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, closed the airspace in the tri-state area, affecting the normal airports that you know about, LaGuardia, Kennedy, Newark, but it went as far north as Stewart Air Force and Westchester Airport and Morris County Airport, and on Long Island, Islip Airport and the Farmingdale Airport. It affected everything. At 10:21, the FAA closed the airspace nationally across the whole United States. Canada closed their airspace as well. As a result, almost 5,000 aircraft were grounded. They had to find, as quickly as possible, an airport. And they did that in less than 2 hours. This is the first time the skies were clear since 1903, and the first aircraft took flight. Can you hear it? Can you feel it? The silence was deafening. I grew up on Long Island, and every 3.5 minutes, an airplane would go overhead. All of a sudden, the skies are clear. There's nothing. When the FAA in Boston Center, TMU, heard the conversation on that United flight, that first flight, Flight 11, that hit the first tower, he surmised that this was a hijacking. There is a transponder and there's a code for hijacking. Not one of those 4 planes had the hijacking code put into the transponder. In fact, the transponders were all shut off. He called to have the F-16s dispatched. The F-16s were dispatched and en route and would arrive in New York in 11 minutes. The second plane hit 9 minutes later, 3 minutes shy. There was no warning. There was no introduction. One of the things that United Airlines did is Channel 9 on their passenger service entertainment system gave all the cockpit traffic. And the passengers were listening as to what was going on. It became horrifyingly clear moments later when the controller's voice crackled into the airplane cockpits across the United States, but was calm, but it encouraged and requested all pilots, everyone listening, to turn the frequency over to their company, their airline, for instructions. Aircraft landed at airports that they didn't have terminals. They didn't have ground crews. But everyone landed safe, and the air traffic system was brought to its knees. At 10:31, 10 minutes after the national all quiet, the FAA allowed the military and law enforcement to regain flights. One of the things that maybe you haven't heard is that there were some additional planes. There were 7 planes that could not be accounted for. The 4 that we knew that had crashed. One of the planes had a hijacking code on their transponder. It was a Korean airline flying in from Asia. Canada requested the United States to escort that plane to the nearest airport. Valdez, the harbor where all of the tankers were being filled, was asked to have all of those tankers disconnect and go to sea. They did not know what else was coming. Finally, that plane landed in Whitehorse. But before that, Anchorage, the government buildings, the large hotels were all vacated. The major cities in Canada were vacated. Garvey was the one that was in charge of the FAA at the time. She sounded cool, said the source from Time magazine, and concentrated on what was possible that each participant knew. This was a colossal event that required colossal response. It wasn't until Thursday that air traffic was allowed to start back up again. To give you an idea, October 2001, there were 15,000 flights a day. On 9/10, there were 17,500 flights. Slowly, went from 1,400 to 7,000 to 9,000. It wasn't until September 2003 that the airwaves were back in full swing with 18,200 flights a day. September 2013, 17,800 flights. It took 3 years before air traffic returned to normal. Did you hear the silence? The silence of no aircraft? That silence was deafening. Madam Producer.
Thank you very, very much, Rachel. The things there I didn't know. Thank you. All right, and our final speaker on this show is Paul Scharf. Paul's the first district governor for our new District 83, 2008. And Paul, you have 6 DTMs. Are you working on your 7th?
Pardon me?
You're DTM 6.
Yes.
You're working on your 7th?
Absolutely.
Good for you. So, Paul, you're doing a speech on something that I thought was interesting. Sue Brooks is your evaluator, and your title is Middlesex County Activities During 9/11. And when you took over as the district governor, you had your first meeting over in this, I call it a first aid squad.
Right.
And I never saw anything work as well as his people over there. So we'd like to hear your story about what happened to your squad and the members during the 9/11.
Okay. Did you want me to stop for a minute while you did send another picture?
Oh,
up?
I did have one thing. Thank you for reminding me. Yes. This is not his time, please. Paul couldn't attend the meeting last month when we were doing a wedding show. And the weather was horrendous, and he just couldn't make the trip. So I asked my son to have the picture ready, because when Paul sent me his wedding picture to Sandy Scharf, I looked at it and I said, this came from Paul, but who's the couple? I saw this handsome young man with a full head of black hair and this very attractive woman. I said, why is he sending me this picture? And I look at him, it's his email. It didn't look like him, and it certainly didn't look like Sandy.
Oh, my.
But is it up there? Yes. Now, would you take that as our first district governor of District 83? It doesn't look a bit like Paul or Sandy, and we love them both. You know, if you saw one, you saw the other. They went in tandem. And I think it's, well, like Sue Brooks also with her picture. Her husband's tall, she's down here, and I figured, oh, good Lord. And then I said to Peter, don't go up in the attic for my wedding book. So I gave him my picture, and we butchered a picture of my husband with my daughter at her graduation. But that picture made me laugh, Paul. I mean, you were handsome, and you're a good-looking guy, but that's...
Still is.
I'm trying to
I
make him feel good
was?
now.
I
Yes.
was?
You were? There's a big difference
I'm
between
sorry
that...
I'm down to one eye, but what
I
can you
realize
do?
that, and we love that eye double a month. I hope what happened, I think he's just getting ready for
Okay, we're
Halloween.
running
He's
out of
going as a
time.
pirate.
He needs
Okay, here we go. Paul, I already said, Middlesex County activities during 9/11. Let's all welcome Paul Scharf.
Okay, I will be explaining a lot of what happens in Middlesex County in New Jersey, and I'm sure it happens in many other counties. There's an emergency management system that takes care of the ambulances as things are happening, where there's more activity needed. 9/11, we got a call from, I'm on the first aid squad in my town. So we got a call from the emergency management system that our 3 ambulances, and we have 3 in our town, were to go to Staten Island and to wait there for anybody coming from New York to Staten Island and get them to different hospitals. Well, just think about it. If the 3 ambulances from our town leave our town, what happens? Well, the Middlesex County Emergency Management System has a system where our next town, Edison, they send 1 ambulance into our town to cover our town for any initial emergencies in our town, while our 3 ambulances go to Staten Island to wait for and pick up patients, people that are hurt or people that just need transportation to get back into an area in the area of Highland Park of Middlesex County. So just something that you should know, that in just about every county that I know of, this emergency management system really takes care of your particular town. If your ambulances have to leave town to do something, or if they have to cover some major emergency, the emergency management system will have ambulances from other towns in the area to cover your town. And our town was covered adequately by Edison, the next town, while we did our thing of going to Staten Island, taking some of the patients that came to Staten Island and bringing them to local hospitals. That's something that we do. That's something that the Middlesex County Emergency Management System does, and that is something that I believe a lot of towns and management systems do to protect their own, as their ambulances have to cover another emergency somewhere in that area. And that's the way we worked during 9/11. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. I know, I was very impressed. In fact, one time we were over there, and they brought in one of the ambulances, and they waited until Paul came to go and put it in the garage. Big man on campus.
Okay, we're running out of time, so we need
What?
to move fast
Yeah,
with
we
this.
have to do this evaluations. All right, now the evaluations. What's over there? Okay, Tony. Oh, Tony, you're going to be talking about my speech. Thank you, Tony. And my
Okay.
speech was, let's see, 9/11, the pain never goes away, which we've seen today. It will never go away, but
I do remember, Fran, when 9/11 happened and you were the district governor at the time. And I remember when you couldn't cross the river.
I still have to look in the sky anytime I do
All
cross
right.
a bridge, to be honest.
But
with you.
anyway, in your speech, I liked actually the pauses that you have. They were good. You have vocal variety. And I thought that you actually emphasized that feeling that you had when 9/11 happened. And I'm supposed to be time in less than 30 minutes. So I would like to just mention something. There was a couple of instances when you sort of ended your sentences in almost like a murmur, which I couldn't hear and much less understand. So what I would suggest is probably keep that volume up so that everything that you said would be heard and understood. Other than that, it was a good recollection of what happened in your case, and I would like to express how I was affected by that, but I don't have the time, so thank you, friend.
Okay, thank you. And don't go home with my manual, please. Just give it to me at the end of the meeting, okay? Thank you. Okay. And now Fern's speech was evaluated by Kevin Thompson. Kevin?
Fellow Toastmasters Fran and Fern. Fern is an educator, and we got a real education from Fern. I had no idea about Gander. And it's funny when you think about, Canada and being our closest neighbor and how they were able to help us. And when you think about now the contention that we have with the tariffs in Canada, the whole idea of a friendly relationship with our closest neighbor is something that's invaluable and that we cannot just throw away. And the fact that these people gave willingly from their hearts to help others, people that they didn't even know, is something I think that we all inspire to do. And I'm so glad that Fern had the forethought and knowledge to not only visit, but to bring that story to us. And now we bring that story to you. So thank you so much, Fern. It was very educational.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kevin. Now Rachel Weiss is back to evaluate Isaac's speech. Thank you.
You're very welcome. As always, Isaac, you got us to think and to ponder. You got us to look, and so vividly our minds brought back where we were and what we were doing, brought back how it affected our lives and the lives of those around us. Thank you for reminding us that prayer does change things, that interaction and care supersedes the horror that we might see around us. So thank you for helping us remember that there's more to life and that we can succeed even through the adversity.
Thank you very much, Rachel. And I thank you for filling in there. And now to evaluate your speech, we'll have Margarita Estrada. Aren't you glad today you keep getting up and down and up and down and up and down?
Yes.
She's having a good time.
Rachel's speech was entitled Clear the Air. Clear the air could be emotional, however, it can also be environmental. In this case, she covered both beautifully. First, she gave us facts about when the airspace was closed, the effects on people around the world, not just New York City. What she did was to just pour her heart out. And how can she take this speech to another level? Well, first, try to control her emotions a little bit. I feel that the emotions got in the way, and as a result, it made the speech sound a little bit robotic. So relax, talk to the audience at home as if they were your friend. Other than that, you did a fantastic job. Looking forward to hearing you next time. Bye.
She does personalize everything, doesn't she? Okay. And now we have Sue Brooks talking about Paul Scharf's speech. Sue?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Paul, I enjoyed your speech in hearing about the role of Middlesex County Emergency Services during 9/11. One of the things I think that you did exceptionally well, Paul, was that you were slow, controlled, and that kept with the somber occasion of 9/11. It was important hearing about how you have 3 ambulances and they took care of meeting the needs of the patients. One of the things I would love to hear more a little bit was your particular role in the ambulance squad servicing the towns in Middlesex County. I think it was a very important job that the volunteers did, but as with any other speech, I would love to hear more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sue. Okay. And I guess that's our last evaluator, and we're almost out of time. So I hope we'll see everybody again. Our next meeting is October 6th, and if anyone here is a member first and wants to do a speech on either of our meetings, morning or afternoon, send me your information as soon as possible. I'm now mapping out October, November, and December's shows, and this way I can start my work earlier, and I hope everybody shows up when they're supposed to. And I'm very impressed with that book
Let me say one thing. There was a marriage.
because of 9/11.
There was a marriage because of 9/11. In one of the shelters, there were these 5 young people that were hanging out together and going to the bars at night. And they were all married except for one young single girl. And they said, you know what? We got to find you somebody. So they, at the bar, and one of the big mouth ladies looks across the room. She sees this nice young man. You, come over here. You married? No. A Marine, had been detained, of course, in Gander like everybody else. He started hanging out with these other young people. The girl and the guy eventually got together despite the long-distance relationship, and a couple of years later they married, and Gander was where they honeymooned.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'm glad you got that out
That's
here
not
on
in the
tape.
book because this happened after 2002, but I'm telling you, the things that happened were amazing.
Well, they were meant
And
to,
all
they were
these
meant to be.
speeches, just everybody, we just all meshed into each other, which was
Unbelievable.
wonderful.
Well, let's hope we never have to mesh for something like
Yes.
that again.
Yes.
And let's just hope that peace comes. Some of the crazy things that are happening in the world today, I think more people should pray. And you pray to whichever God you want, whoever you want. But just pray. And it doesn't have to be a prayer where you're in church. You could pray anywhere. Look at a tree that I had showing here in the beginning. Who made the trees? I mean, I made them because I was covering up my mistakes in my paintings, and leaves will do that. They cover up an awful lot of things. So we'll see you all next time on Toastmasters in the Community.
Bye-bye.
Bye.